Good evening. Yes, good evening, Amritesh. Welcome to my class. We'll just wait for 2 more minutes and then we'll start. Again. So we have been dealing with class 12th CBSE computer science topics, and we have been looking into Python. And yesterday, in the last class, we started with files, and today we have a continuation of the same topic. So I hope I am clearly visible and audible to everyone. Yes, Amritesh, I hope I am audible and visible. Yes, just 1 more minute and then we'll pitch in. So we just started the introductory topics to the files, wherein we learned yesterday how to open and then close a file. So in today's session, we'll be having a small recap of what we went through yesterday, or the point where we stopped yesterday. And today we'll be learning about how to read in the file. Okay, read from the file. So the different functions offered for reading and supported by the syntax and the various examples. Okay. Yes, with this note, we are pitching in. So, a very good evening. I hope all of you are safe, sound, and healthy. So, welcome to Unacademy. Welcome to Let's Crack CBSE Science. So, before moving on to the classes, let me give you a self introduction. Hello, all. I am Shalini. So, I am a BTech and MTech holder in computer science and engineering. I'm a teacher by profession with over 14 years of teaching experience, excited to provide an inspiring learning experience to the students. Now, the same vision that I would love to accomplish via an academy. So, via this online platform, also, I'm excited to provide the inspiring learning experience to all the students whom I could not have reached through my offline or classroom teaching. Okay, so this is a topic that we'll be dealing today. We have started off yesterday working with files, and today we'll be looking into the second part of it. Okay, so before moving on to the lessons, let us have just a detailed tour over the Unacademy and its subscription details. Now, as you all know, Unacademy is the India's largest e-learning platform. Okay, so it is not just grown out to be the largest platform, not because of the reason of the pandemic situation, but also for the reason that it offers courses ranging for a school going student to an aspirant who is preparing for a competitive examination. Now, how do you get the access to the resources offered by an academy? All you need to do is get the plus subscription so that you can enjoy the courses offered by the best of the educators all over India. Okay. So this is a new thing that is being introduced by Unacademy, the iconic subscription. So this would help you to take your preparation, the CBSE preparation to the next level with your personal mentor. See the attraction here, you have a personal mentor assigned to you. Now, wherein you get one-to-one guidance from the top experts as your personal mentor and align the learning strategy and resolve all your concerns, okay, via this mentor. And there is also a parent connect wherein the parents also get a chance to interact with the mentor and get to know the performance of his or her ward. Okay, so there are regular open hours for parents to discuss the learner's performance, report with the mentor, and receive the weekly performance reports also. Okay, and there is a live doubt solution session. Okay, now here attend exclusive doubt solving classes to solve these subject doubts and get customized study plan to track the progress. Now, all these benefits can be enjoyed by getting the plus subscription. Okay, so where you get live classes from top educators, you have the mock test and quizzes and structured batch courses. Now, everything in line with the current examination syllabus, and here is the subscription iconic subscription fee package starting amount for per month. It would cost you around 2,333. Okay, now in the plus subscription, now this is the access to the best of the Unacademy. So once you get a plus subscription, what are you or what will you get in Unacademy? You get daily live classes wherein you get an opportunity to chat with your educator, engage in discussions, ask your doubts and answer via polls. Now all the facility while the live class is going on. All the courses in the plus subscription are well structured and in line with the current examination syllabus. So this would in way help you to prepare for the forthcoming examination. Okay, then apart from that, there are live tests and quizzes. Now this would help to evaluate your preparation with the regular mock test and quizzes, and also gives you an analysis of how well you're getting yourself prepared for the examination. Now, to enjoy all these features, all you need to get is a subscription. So, to get a plus subscription, so that you get unlimited access to all the resources. So, resources like live and recorded courses, live and recorded session of the same course to watch, which can be viewed at the comfort of your time as well as your device. Now see here, the class 12 subscription fee starts from a month subscription fee, which would cost you around 1,250. Okay. So this is how the live classes would be. This is how it would appear in it. Okay. So when a session is going live, you have the red button in which it is written live, so that you can attend a live session, and all the other sessions would be either the forthcoming sessions or the already existing or recorded version. Now this is how the comprehensive syllabus would look like. Now, being a school going student, you will be having the different subjects, and underneath each subject will be given the different courses, okay, offered by the best educators. So, all you need to do is click on the particular course and then view the course, offered by the educator at the comfort of your time or your device. Now, this is the Unacademy Learning app that you need to download and install in your smartphones. You can get it downloaded from the Play Store. So I repeat, for all the learners who wish to join Unacademy, you have to download the Unacademy Learning app, which can be downloaded from the Play Store and installed in your smartphones, and get a subscription based on your the plan that is suiting you. Now, apart from that, there is a Telegram channel too. Now, to join the channel, all you need to do is you should have the app downloaded in your smartphones, And see the link here, Quest 12 CBSE Commerce. Now you need to type the link in the URL as shown in the space, okay, and then join to the channel, okay. So this is how the Creative Corner subscription would look like. You would have both the plus as well as the iconic. Now these are the details with respect to the plus subscription. Okay. So these are the different plans that are being listed here, ranging from a month subscription to a year subscription. And if you use my promo code SLYT, you get a discount of 10% on all the plans that have been listed here. Now, this with respect to the iconic subscription as per the Creative Corner. Now, here too, the code can be applied to avail the benefit of 10% discount on the fees. Okay. So that's all with respect to Unacademy and its new launch, the iconic subscription. So if you are a plus one or a plus two students, I would highly recommend you to take a year subscription so that this would help you in the preparation for your forthcoming examination, board examination, as well as your preparation for the entrance examination, right? So, moving on to the agenda of the day. As I told you, we are dealing with class 12 CBSE, computer science, and now we're going to learn the second part of files in Python. We're going to start with where we stopped in the last class. So we'll have a short recap on what we learned in the last class, and then today we'll be looking a detailed into how we can read from files, how the reading operation from files can be seen. Though the contents look very small, we have a pretty long thing to learn today. Okay. So this is where what we had seen in the previous class. We have a few slides with respect to what we have come across in the last class. Now we saw that there is a need for storing persistent data, okay, or you need to maintain your data for a longer period of time. Now one of the most simplest way for doing it is reading and writing the text files, okay. So now the definition says it itself is a bunch of bytes which is stored on some storage device like the hard disk, or this is the secondary storage. So the secondary storage enables the permanent storage as well as a means of storing the bulk information. Now the files are used to save information so that it can be retrieved later for use. Now why this is saved is so that they can be retrieved later on for the use. Okay. Now we also learned how to open files for performing the operation. Now it's not just enough that you create something, but only if you open the file can you do the operations like read or write onto the files. Now the opening of the files could be done using the function open, right? Now the open function all in smaller case letters, and we also learned that the two syntaxes via which a file could be opened, wherein the first method you just had to mention the file name. So that means this function was taking just a single argument. Yes, good evening Suravi, welcome to my class. So right now we are having a recap of what we learned yesterday. So the other syntax is that in the open function with two parameters wherein you give the file name as well as the mode in which you are trying to open the file. Okay, whether it is a read mode, whether it is a write mode, or the append mode. Now all these three modes we had covered in the last class. Now apart from that, we saw that the open function, it always returns a file object. What does it do? It returns a file object. Now the type is also a file. So what you need to do is you need to create a return file object so that the open function, whenever it returns a value, the value gets stored to the variable that is being assigned on the left hand side. Now what exactly would be the variable on the left hand side? It's nothing but the file object or your file handle. Okay. So now the file object can be used to refer to the file on disk. So when you try to create or when you try to open a file, what exactly happens is, now where is the file residing in your permanent storage, right? So actually there is a link getting established from this point, I mean from the file handle to the point where it is being saved. So the open function actually enables the link to be generated, and when you actually close the file, that means your entire operations with respect to the file is over, and now you're trying to close the file. So what happens? The link that was generated using the open function gets detached, or you just cut it off. So this is how you close the file. Fine. So moving on, we had also seen the different modes in which you can open the file, right? Now, which were the modes that we learned? We learned the read, the write, as well as the append mode. Okay. Now, whenever you wanted to create a file, a new file, you definitely had to use the write mode. Okay. Now, whenever you wanted to read the contents of a file, so that means existing and you are trying to open and add new information, plus you retain the already existing information. So this is how append mode works. Appending means actually adding information to the tail end of what already have been existing. So this is how the append mode also works. Now all these different operations or the modes are possible in the open file, and it will refer how the file will be used once it is opened. Okay. So the function open would enable you to open your file, and the mode will help you to understand, or the mode will make the compiler understand now what I mean how the file has to be opened, or how the operations in the file has to be performed. So we also ended up yesterday's class with the close method, not the function. We named it as the method because it is getting accessed via the file handle, right? Now, what was the function that we used? The open file is closed by calling the close function. Now, an example for it, my file, where my file is the file handle which was created by the user. So, my file dot close. Yes, Riya, good evening and welcome to my class. A file using the open function, what happens? A link is getting established from where to where? From the file object to the place where the file is residing, right? So similarly, when you try to close it, what happens exactly is you are trying to detach the link between the file pointer to the place where the file is being stored. Yes, Suraja, good evening and welcome to my class. Now, one more thing that has to be noted here is after the close function, you are not permitted to perform any other operations or task onto the file. So what does close indicate? The close actually detaches a link and it is actually closing of your file. Only when the file is opened can you perform any task in it. Okay. So you need to be careful with the close function, and remember that it is not just a function but it is actually a method. Why? Because it is considered as a component of your file handle. Okay. So that's all for what आपको क्लास कितनी बजे होती है रिया my classes are usually at 8:30 p.m. In the YouTube session. Okay. And there are live sessions in the Unacademy app also. Okay. And in the YouTube, it is not on a regular basis, at least on alternate days that I do take. My previous class was on Monday, and my next class would be probably on Friday. Okay. Yes, good evening. कोई ग्रुप नो नो व्हाट यू नीड टू डू इज आपको क्या करना चाहिए कि आप लेट्स क्रैक सीबीएसई साइंस जो होता है ना अन अकेडमी के आपको सब्सक्राइब करना होगा, and in the videos you get the updates of all the videos that will be posted by the educators, wherein you can see mine too. Okay, so I hope I have answered you. So reading from the files, now here is wherein we pitch in for the topic of the day. So today we'll be looking into how we can read from the files. So we have already created a file, okay? And now we are going to read the contents of the file. Now to understand that, we are dealing with the language Python, right? So in the language Python, it offers three types in which the read function could be used. Or in short, there are three variants for the function read. Now what does read help you to do? It helps you to read from a data file, right? So see the three variants. You have read line, and see here read lines. Now this is a plural, okay? Now one more thing to be remembered, now all the characters here are smaller case. Now since Python is case sensitive, we need to be very careful when you're writing the function also, okay? Now what is the mandatory thing that you need to take care of if you have to perform the task of reading from a file? Now to read from a file, the file must be opened and linked via the file object or the file handle. Is the idea clear? To read from a file, the mandatory thing is that the file must be opened and linked via the file handle. Okay. So once the file is opened and linked via the file handle, can you start reading or writing onto the files, whatever be the task that you need to perform. So let's see each one of these methods, I mean the functions in detail with the syntax. So we're moving on to the very first function now, which is a function read, right? So this is not actually a function. Now read and the variants of read function are actually the read and the variants of read function are actually methods here. Now see the syntax. Now the syntax itself says how it is used as a method, right? We have the file handle dot read of n, right? So in this case, we have the file handle and then we are trying to read the function. Now, how did I teach you to understand or interpret the syntax? Whatever is whatever is given between the angle brackets, right? The angle brackets, it is a place where the programmer has to write something. And when something is enclosed between square brackets, now these are the things that are optional. So when you're using the read function, what it actually says is you can either omit the value that is or the parameter that is being written inside the read function or the method, or you can explicitly give a value. That value should be a numerical value for the read method. Okay, so it reads at the most n bytes. Yes, pickle will be dealing later. Sorry, Vishwa, it's just right now that I'm seeing your questions, queries. Can we use read and read line function? File is dot dat. Actually, we need to specify the mode. I mean, in the mode that we actually, there's a problem. We actually specify the mode in which the files would be open to distinguish it between the text files and as well as the binary files. And then we'll be switching on with the different tasks to be performed on the files, whether it is read or write as well. Okay. Now herein we are treating the text files wherein the contents are actually strings, right? So as we go on in due course of the slides, we will also learn that the functions also return some value. Now this type is default to be string here. Okay. Now, when you're treating CSV file, the function, I mean, the mode also differs, as well as there is slight difference to the functions also. Okay. Yes, that's what I said. Pickle module will be dealing later on. Don't worry about that. Okay. Shall I continue? So see here, right now we are dealing with the text files. So here we are going to use the read function for reading from the file. Now the mandatory thing, you should have your file opened. Okay. Now this reads at the most n bytes. Okay. If n is specified. Now, if it is not specified, what happens? The read function would look without any parameter, right? So, in this case, what you're trying to read is your entire file is getting read. So, it returns a read bytes in the form of a string. So, this is what I was trying to tell. Vishwa, I hope you have seen this. So, it returns a read bytes in the form of a string. Okay. So, the return type of this function is also a string. So, whatever you are reading, so we are handling the text files, and the return type of the data is also a string. Fine. So, we'll be looking into the few examples so that we understand the read function clearly. So, moving on to our first example. Now, what exactly does this statement indicate? Read line, after reading one line, will it append? No, it's not appending actually. Once you do a read line, it would be printed, and the next read line is actually in the next print. It is actually treated as a next print, right? So in this case, the where the cursor has stopped, from that point it would be reading the next line. And when it is, since we are trying to print it, now the print default has a delimiter, which is the escape sequence, that is our new line. Okay. So what happens is it will be printed on each of the lines. Actually, it is not the read line that is appending. Since we are giving the print statement, it is actually giving, or I mean printing it in a new line. This is how we see the output of the read line, right? I hope you got me. Okay, so moving on to our first example. So see here, I have opened a file, and the name of your file is form.txt. It is saved in the E drive. Now we also saw that we, instead of the file name, uh, one empty line is printed. I mean, I'm sorry, wherein see, it actually reads with the line character. And if no more strings have, I mean, and a blank, yes, yes. See, in the read line, yes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. See, we'll be seeing a variant where in the print we would give, we give the delimiter as a space rather than the new line. So in that case, it would be just taking in what is there in the file. See, when we learned yesterday in the file, we already saw that there is an end of line character for the file itself, right? So in this case, what happens is it will read the bytes in the form of a string ending with the new line. Now, this new line character itself is there in the file right at the end. The blank line is printed. Maybe the file already had a blank line. Is that so? Is that what you're trying to ask me? Okay, just post it in the chat. We'll look into it. Shall I continue with the example here right now? See here, you're opening a file. Now, this file we saw in the yesterday. Are you trying to say that after using read line, the single line of text was not read from your file and then you got a blank line? Is that so? Is that what you're trying to ask me? See, in this example, we are trying to open a file form.txt in the read mode, and then we are trying to, now the file is opened. Now what are you trying to do? Yes, that's what I told. If the content was blank, definitely there's nothing to be read from the file, right? So that is why it printed a blank for you. See, after opening the file, when you're trying to read from the file, so how is the read to be used? See here, the syntax says you need the file handle dot followed by the function read, right? So see how it is being shown, my file dot read of 30. So in this case, what happens is if you're specifying the value explicitly, the first 30 characters or the 30 bytes would be printed on the screen. But if you do not use the number or the numerical value, what happens? The entire file would be read, right? So whatever you're reading, it is actually returned as a string. We had already seen that it would return the read bytes in the form of a string. So what you have to do is collect it to a variable. Now this variable, the default return type would be string. Why? Because you're reading everything in the form of a string, right? Now this would be saved to str, and when you're trying to print the string, what happens? Everything that would be stored in the variable str in the form of string would be printed onto your screen. Okay. So what this above code fragment says is it will read the files, how many bytes, the first 30 bytes or the first 30 characters, and then print it onto the screen. Now what you need to note here is when we are specifying the number of bytes, the Python will read only that many number of bytes, okay, and it will get truncated. Sometimes it would be halfway through your file. I mean halfway through the maybe a line of text or something. So only that much would be read and only that would be printed onto the screen. So the next read, now this is what Vishwa already asked me. The next read will start reading onwards from the last position read. That means if you're having multiple read operations, see, I'm trying to read the first 30 bytes and then print it. Now I'm again going to initiate the same. If I'm going to copy paste and say str1 is equal to my file dot read of 30 again and then print that str1, what happens? From the point where it has stopped, from there, from that position to the next 30 bytes would be printed onto the screen. Okay. So this is a doubt that you asked me first. So this is how the position gets tracked or gets moved. Okay. So if you want to start afresh, what you would do is either you need to close and then reopen it so that your file handle gets pointed to the start of your file and then you can start reading over again. So let's get to seeing the next output. See here in the same line, we are trying to open as well as read here. Now, what would this function file do? It actually opens the file. That is, we have tried to merge the open as well as read onto a single statement like the file function. Okay, now what this function does is it will be opening the file in the read mode, and then what does the second function do? Now, whatever function that you have read, I mean opened, the first 30 bytes of the same file is getting read. Okay. Now this output, if you're trying to print the output would be the same as that of the in the previous program. What would happen? Only the first 30 bytes would be read and then it would be printed onto the screen. So the first function will open and the second function would be performing with the result of the first function. Is the idea clear? Now, so here also what we need to keep in mind is the position where the file handle would be pointing to. Now it would be reading onwards from the last position that was already read. Okay. So moving on to our next example. So the next example is my file is equal to open, wherein you are opening a file poem.txt in the read mode. And see here you are having two read functions here, right? So what does the first function do? It would read the first 30 bytes or the 30 characters from your file and then it would be printed on the screen. So imagine that there were four lines, okay, and the first two lines itself would take around 30 characters. So this would be printed. Now your cursor is in the third line, right? Because all the other two lines are read and it was printed also. Now, when you're initiating the second read, what happens? Actually, the reading happens from this point because you have not closed the file and in the same open file you are trying to initiate the read 30, so that means the next 30 bytes, okay, not just another 30 bytes but the next 30 bytes from the last position read. So the count of 30 bytes would be taken from this position till where the 30 bytes reach or the 30 characters reach, and then what would happen? It would be printed onto the screen. This is a case in which your file comes to an end. That means there are no more characters to be read in the file or no more bytes are left for reading. So this is a case. Ending. Did you mean ending with the new line character or returns a blank if, see, I'm having a file, okay, and I'm having such contents here. Fine. Now, in this case, this file would be going on reading, and I mean the read operation is initiated and you're reading each line by line. And we know that every line has an end of line character also. Okay. Now, this is a stage where we haven't learned anything about end of file. We have just learned about the end of line. Fine. Now, these are the only contents in your file. Now, after reading this, when it initiates, you see there are no more contents. In this case, what happens? No more bytes are left. Till then, it would be read. I mean, the reading operation would continue till you find an empty line, and this is how you get out of the file, telling that there are no more contents in the file. See, can you read something from, I mean, all the other portions would be empty lines, right? Can you go on reading something from there? No. Now, actually, let us take a practical example of reading a book. Now, how do you read a novel? You start reading from your page 1 or chapter 1 till you go till the end of it, right? Now, after the end, the end line or the last line of the book has been reached, the ultimate thing that you would be doing is end up the process of reading, right? This exactly is the meaning what is being conveyed for read line. But what read line does is it is reading line by line. So this is one more thing that we'll be looking into. We are coming into read line in the next after we have covered the read function. That is the end of line character for each of the line of text in your file. The escape sequence that we already told, right, in the last class. Okay, so this is how the two read operations are performed. Now, the output would be different in the case if suppose you had closed your file in between and then if you have reopened it, the output have been different. Okay, now the opening has been done only once and then you are initiating the two read operations. What would happen? Every time from the point where you have stopped, it is from there, it is again reiterating or restarting. It is simply like considering you keep a bookmark till where you have read, and the second time you open that book, what you do? You hunt for the bookmark, and from the point where you have read, you continue reading it. Okay. So let's move on to the next example here. Now, this is a case in which you are trying to read your entire file or the full file in the stretch and not limiting to the number of bytes or the number of characters here. Okay. So my file dot read, wherein my file is your handle or the file object, and the read is a method which is treated as a component of the file object or the my file. Okay. So you're trying to open the file in the read mode and then now you're trying to read the file. Have you mentioned any value or the number of bytes here? No. So what happens? The reading procedure goes from the start till the end of your file. Now whatever is getting read from the file is stored to the variable str wherein it can be printed on the screen. Okay. Now moving on to this is what you have been asking, right? See here, read line. Okay. Now, when you were using just the read function, what happens? The read could be used either for a selected number of bytes or for the entire file. Now, when it comes to read line, you are talking about a specific line of input. Okay. Now, the contents of the file can either appear as a line of text or as a whole. But whatever it is, it would have an escape sequence like how you have right now mentioned. So this escape sequence would be the EOL character or the end of line character for your file. Okay. So what happens is the read line again has two variants wherein you can either give the number of bytes inside the read line function, as a parameter, or it is not mandatory. It is actually an optional value since in the syntax it has been specified with the square brackets. Now what happens here is if n is specified, at the most the n number of bytes from that line is read. Otherwise what happens is it will read the bytes in the form of a string ending with new line. Now actually, what is readline function doing? It has to read a line of text or a line of input, right? So in this case, there has to be some demarcation to show you which is the end of your line. See, when you're reading a book, we know that yes, the sentence gets terminated with a full stop. Now we have learned that in our lower classes. So here we know every sentence gets terminated with a full stop. And when we see the full stop, we understand that yes, we have come to the end of a sentence. Now you need to make a system understand what is the end delimiter, right? In that case, what happens? The EOL character is either usually it is taken as a new line. So what happens is it will read the read bytes in the form of a string ending with \n or the escape sequence showing that this is the end of the line. So wherever this \n is seen, it will read that all those characters. Or what it would do is it would return a blank string if no more bytes are left for reading in the file. That means you have come to almost the end of the file, or returns a blank screen if nothing is left in your file. That means what? You have come to the end. Is the idea clear? See, how does a chapter appear in your book? You would have the title, right? And then maybe it is not in the immediate next line that your chapter is going to start. You may have a blank line and then followed by the entire text coming afterwards. Fine. Now after that, but you have not reached the end of file even if you see a blank line. What happens when you're trying to read line? I mean the you're trying to read from the file using the method read line. What happens is it will search for the file handle would be pointing at the topmost, I mean leftmost corner. It will progress towards the right, and whenever it encounters \n, now it understands that yes, it has reached the end of line. Fine. So this particular line is read and it would be returned as string. Now whatever read function do, it is always returning as a string that we already saw. So all the three variants are also going to return as a string. Fine. So what happens? Read line is also going to return as a string. Okay. Now this would be returned to a string. It can be copied to a variable and this variable could be printed. Now it returns a blank screen if it finds that there is no more bytes to be read. That means you are specifying n here. Okay. Now if n is specified, that many number of bytes would be read. Now after that there are no more bytes to be read. In that case what happens? It would return a blank string. No, the file itself has a new line. This is what we already saw in the last class. It has to have some of the characters to show that there is an end of the line, right? Or else how can read line interpret, yes, this is the, just a second. Or else how can the read line understands that, just a second. No, it will, I was giving you an example. See, when you're writing, we as human, when we are writing sentences, we give a full stop to mark the end of a sentence, right? Similarly, in the file, the marking is using the escape sequence. There should be some character to mark the end of the line. See, whenever you're typing something, you naturally press enter key, right? So that you can continue on to the next line. So how is this done? See, when you're typing a document, how do you type it? You type a line of text and then you want the next sentence to come in the next line. What do you do? What do you press? You naturally press enter key, right? Now this enter key can be is read in the file. It is stored as a character actually. Now this particular character is what we call as the end of line character. It's not actually the full stop. Don't consider like that. I was giving you an example to understand that we as humans mark the termination of a sentence as full stop. I was trying to give I was giving you an analogy rather. Is the idea clear? Okay. So moving on to our next example. So my file wherein you are trying to open a file in the read mode. Okay. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to give the read line. I'm going to read the contents of the file using the read line. Yes. Yes. Go on. So how long would you go on writing this line? Yes, at some point you would be pressing the enter key, right? Or else you are just having this and then you are closing your file. Isn't it? See, when we learn that, what happens after reading this? It would be printed on your screen. See, the full stop would not be considered as your end of the line. The entire line would be read. Okay. So, see here, we are trying to open the file. Now, the file is a pom.txt in the read mode. And then, what are we trying to do? We are trying to illustrate the method read line. Okay. So, whatever we are trying to read line from the file pom.txt, we are copying it to str. And then see here, we are printing print str comma end is equal to space. Now, this is what happens after reading this. After reading this, actually, after reading this, nothing would happen. Reading this would be, whenever you're reading, you are returning a string. So this string can be assigned to a variable. Now, whatever variable that you are assigning, this variable only you can print on the screen. Okay. So whatever it being returned from the function is getting printed on the screen. See, when you're typing this sentence, it is just till from, right? With that marks the end of the file itself. There's nothing more content to be read from the file. And as you see, this is appearing in the single line. It is actually appearing as a single line of text, right? And you are not trying to strip using strip method or function so that nothing is going to be get stripped off also. See Vishwa, after encountering the end of line, there is it will naturally, if it encounters an end of line, what happens? The next thing is the cursor moves on to the next line, right? But with this, you are telling that you have, see, after encountering end of line, only that particular line of text is going to be read, right? And then it would be printed on the screen. There is nothing more here. So this is what the syntax also tells you for how read line to be working on. Now this is a case you use read line methods wherein you need to say you need to read a line of text and then you need to find out the number of words in it. In that case you can strip it or you can cut it into pieces with the delimiters as space, or if you want to see the delimiters as full stop or comma or any other separators. Now you can use any of the separators in the strip function. So these are the applications wherein you would be using the read line function. if the entire the file has to be read, naturally you would be going for the read function. Fine. And one more variant we have, which is called as a read lines. In that case, wherein the output is going to be returned as a list. So in that case, more functionalities could be performed. Okay. So it is nothing. Whenever it encounters an end of line, the read line functionality ends up there. So whatever the read line, what is the process of read line? It has to read a line of text from the file, right? So when it encounters this special character, what happens? The process stops there. Okay. Now, as I told you, yes, good evening, Ritik. Welcome to the class. Okay, now as I told you, such functions. Now, read line is used whenever you need to extract a line of text and do a particular operation or functionalities. When you're asked to say change the case of the characters in a particular line or something like that. Okay. Now, read line in this case, you can even give the line numbers or something like that can also be done. There are different variants for using the same function also. Okay. Okay, see here, now we have the third statement wherein we are trying to print, and see here we have given end is equal to a space. Now why we have given this? Now whenever we are giving print, what happens? The print itself, each print statement itself would be printed in a new line. Now when you are giving this delimiter, it will ensure that whatever is appearing in your data file, exactly it is the same way it is getting printed on the screen. Okay, and no other new line characters would be inserted by your print statement. So this is the ensuring that it does if you are giving like this. If you are not bothered about if the new line is also printed on your screen, you needn't give this delimiter. Okay. Now the read line function will read a full line till a new line character, which is a character as we have been discussing. The end of line is encountered in the data file. Fine. So each line of text, this to be in precise or in concise, what we say is a line of text could be read from the file using the read line function. Okay. So see here what we are trying to do. We have opened the file and then we are trying to use the read line function wherein you are trying to read the entire file. So instead of using the read function, we are going to use the read line function to read the entire contents of the file. The same example as being illustrated in your book, right? Now what is it doing? First you assign a string variable to space. Now space is again a character. Now if nothing was assigned, actually the variable str was pointing to none. Now see how I'm writing the while loop. We know that while loop runs when your condition goes to true, right? So all values other than none, whenever it has a character or whenever the value goes true, the loop gets, the iteration happens or the loop functions. Now what happens inside the loop? You're trying to read. Now read using read line. Fine. So only in the first case, the file is open and the file handle is actually pointing to the very first line. So in this case, only this particular line would be read from the text file, right? Now this line of text would be stored to print. Now you're trying to print it on the screen. Now what does str has? Str now already has a content. So again when you go to the loop is not over yet. Again when you go to the loop, str has a content. Again the true case works out here. Now inside the loop, what happens? You have not closed the file. So what would happen? Where the last position of your cursor is read from that position, the next line would be read. The next line again would be stored to the variable str. You needn't worry because the previous contents would be erased and the new contents would be replaced. No problem because you have already printed that on the screen. See, we have given the print statement inside the while loop itself. So after each read line getting operated, that particular line would be printed on the screen. Fine. So we have given the delimiter here. Why? To ensure that no more new line characters are inserted other than what is there already in the file. Okay. So this is just because you want to see the output as and how it is appearing in the file exactly. Okay, it is similarly like a photostat copy that you are trying to generate. So each time when there is a content in str, what happens? The while loop evaluates to true, and then the while loop evaluates to true, and that particular line of text would be read from the file and it can be printed on the screen. Now what happens, like what you have been asking till now, what happens when it reaches the, when there are no more characters to be read from the file, or when you have reached the end of the file, what happens? The str naturally gets to no value, and thus it would be actually pointing to none, or how this is how what happens, this is how the while loop evaluates to false, and when the end of file is reached, naturally there is no more action to be performed, so I am going to close the file. So see here, the read line function, using the read line function itself, I can read the entire contents of the file, provided I am taking the help of any of the iteration. Okay, here I have used the while loop. The next thing that you need to understand, see, when you are using read line, all the spaces, whether it be in the trailing end or it be in the leading end, now all the spaces would be read along with the trailing new line character. See, the read line is again reading what? The new line character also while reading the line. Is the idea clear? So now we are going to see the next variant of a read line, which is read lines. Okay, wherein see, read line, when you say line, it is a singular word, and when it comes to plural, it is lines, right? So similarly, the same meaning is also getting conveyed here. When I'm saying read lines, what happens? All the lines in the sense, you're reading actually the entire file. Okay, the contents of your entire file, and returns them in a list. Okay, yes, yes, Vishwa. Okay, now this is a sample code to understand how you can read the multiple lines. Now see here, my file dot read lines. Now what happens? You open the file poem.txt in the read mode, and then what happens? Read lines. The entire lines of your file would be read, and it would be stored in. I'm sorry, I had to print str here, not s. Okay, and now it would be saved to the variable str. Fine. And now I'm going to print str. Okay. So what happens? The entire file would be read, and what you need to understand here is, we already learned that when we were learning the read function, things would be returned in the form of strings, but in the read lines, it is going to be stored as a list of strings, okay, wherein each line is stored as a string. So the contents of your file would look like it is appearing in a list, okay, and in the list, it is going to appear as a string. So either you would have single or double quotes to ensure, and all the lines would be separated by comma. Now each of the value would be nothing but a string. Now when the string is considered, even the end of line character will also be included inside, because read lines and reads the entire thing. Okay. So see here, this is the same example as being shown in your book. Okay. So this is a file, the text file that you have, wherein you are having around 4 line of text. Okay. Now see here, the entire line would be red, and this line is stored as the in a list. Okay. Now see here, each line is separated by a comma. Okay. So what is a line going to be treated as? The line is going to be treated as a string. So the contents of the list is actually a string along with the delimiters also. Okay. So this is how the output of read lines would look like. Okay. Now let us learn a few programs. I think I've just included 2 programs because yes, I've just included 2 programs here. Now here, what we are going to see is we're going to display the size of a file in bytes. Okay, what are we going to do? We are going to display the size of the file in bytes. Now in this case, what you have to do, you have to definitely open the file, right? So we are going to find out the size. So naturally, the file should be existing. It should have content, and you will have to open the file in the read mode. Only then each of the characters or the contents of the file could be taken, stored somewhere, and then you can calculate the size, right? So we are going to use the read function since we are going to calculate the size. Now what does read do? We already saw from the syntax that read actually reads the entire byte. So actually it is reading in terms of bytes. So which is a function that would help us to find out the size of the file. Naturally the first variant, which is the read function. Now, we are not going to specify this number of bytes. Instead, we are giving the blank parameter. So, what happens from the start till the end? Okay. So, irrespective of what your size of the file is, the entire file is going to be read. So, that many number of bytes is going to be stored in your variable str. So, what would be the default data type of the variable str? It is string, right? Now, what does len do? Len is actually giving the size. So, we can actually find the size, and now it is a numerical value. Now, you can store it in the variable size. All you need to do is print the value of the size onto the screen. Now, since all the operation with respect to the file is over, you are closing the file. Okay. Yes, Riyansh, good evening. So moving on to our next program, wherein see here we are trying to display the number of lines. Okay, so we are not going to deal with a single line, we are going to deal with all the lines, and we need to find out the number of lines. Now in this case, we know that, in this case, we know that we can only use the function read lines. Why? Because we know in read lines, you are going to have the each line is going to be treated as a string here, right? So we had already seen this. So what happens? You open the file. Now you're going to open the file in the read mode. And what are you trying to do? Using the file handle, you're going to invoke the method read lines. So all the lines in the program would be read. Okay. Now how is this going to be returned? Now each line would be considered as a string or a content of your list, right? So the number of elements in the list would give you the line count. Is the idea clear? Yes, Pushpendra, good evening. So what would happen? The solution is using the function read lines. So when you're using the function read lines, what happens? This function reads the entire lines or all the lines of your function, and then it would be returning as a list, right? So it is actually containing a list of strings. Now what are you trying to do? Oh, again I made the same mistake. I'm so sorry. It is len of str and not s. Okay. So line count is equal to len of str. So what happens? The number of elements in the str would be counted. That means the number of elements in your list would be counted and it would be returned to the variable line count, and you can print the line count on the screen. Now this would be actually the number of lines of text in your file. Now, after entire operations, you are trying to close the function. Okay. So, these are the things with respect to the function read. Okay. Now, we learned the three variants of the read function, which was read, read line, and read lines. Okay. I hope the confusion is also clear to you. So read was to read the entire bytes of your file. Now read lines was also doing the same thing, but each of the line was stored as a content of your list, and this line was treated as a line of text. Okay. You were late, Pushpendra, and then now it's all clear to you. Okay, so please visit. So with this, we have come to the end of today's session. So we had a recap of what we had learned in the previous class, and then we learned how reading from files could be done. Now writing from files is also the same, wherein we have the two methods, the write and write lines too. Okay, so somewhat similar to what we have seen with read and read lines, wherein these things that we'll be discussing in the next class. So our next session would be on Friday, 8:30, YouTube Live. Okay. So there are classes in the Unacademy too, wherein you need to download the app to see the classes. Okay. So with this, we are winding up today's session. So we had seen the three variants of the read function, which was read, read line, and definitely the plural of this, which was read lines. Okay. So all the three functions with the syntaxes were cleared in today's session. So with this note, I'm winding up today's session. Okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you. So with this note, I am bidding good night. So before winding up, let me remind you of my code SLYT, which would give you a 10% reduction in the Unacademy subscription fee. Okay, so I would also like to remind you of the iconic subscription, which I had included in the beginning of the slide. Okay, so the iconic subscription wherein you get a personal mentor and a parent connect as you go on along the journey of an academy. So if you're a class 11 or class 12 student, I would highly recommend you to take up a subscription, either of your choice, either the plus subscription or the iconic subscription as per your choice, and then enjoy the resources of an academy. So, with this note, I'm bidding good night. So, thank you all for joining, and I hope, Vishwa, your doubts are clear. So, with this note, we are winding up today's session. Thank you. Hoping to meet you.